this is the first time for me, so if anything goes awry, I'm going to ask you guys to look to my right and left, because we have 2 vice presidents this year, and blame them instead of me. But I welcome everybody, and I'd like to call this workshop meeting to order. I try to fill the shoes of a distinguished gentleman that preceded me. I think Doug Ward did a great job last year, and I hope I can do as well. And this is the first time to publicly congratulate our new board members. I presume we're all here, Joe and Doug and
Roger's not.
Roger's not here. Okay.
Roger's
Am I not in the mic? How's that? Better? Okay. All right, so I look forward to a terrific year. This is a good time to note that one of the reasons this community works so well is because of the folks at the side tables here who represent the hundreds of volunteers in our community. And I know, working on the board for 2 years and participating in community work, I know that the board and management really appreciates the hard work that goes into the committee work that goes on in our community. So we all appreciate what you do, and thank you, and hope you continue. So with that, let's start the first committee report, and these will be the committees that report to the board, and then we'll follow that with the committees that report to management, and specifically to Mike Bartholomew. So first, let's just go right down the road, and since Dan is sitting first here,
without a microphone,
why don't we ask Dan Kries to report on long-range planning?
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a pleasure to still be able to sit at the table this month. We've had the Long Range Planning Committee has been a very active one this year, and this past month our activity has been even more acute than normal. We were in the process of completing the DCR that was tabled at last month's board meeting. That's in regard to the new capital asset procedure, or policy, policy regarding new projects. We're calling the process now the capital asset modification / creation process. And thanks to Tom Bozzone, who has taken the lead on that, that's going to be really an advantageous policy for our community, in which groups and committees that are interested in a new asset, either the replacement of an existing one or a brand new one, to follow the steps taken to initiate that project. And there is a DCR that was submitted to the bylaws, and it passed that, and we made a presentation to the board of directors, and there were a few questions, and so we addressed those questions, and so I say the presentation of that at the last board meeting, it was tabled. Well, I think we're prepared to have that on the agenda for this coming board meeting. Also, a companion activity has been the development of a database program for identifying and tracking new projects, and I think that's going to be a powerful tool also for the committee. We one of our deliverables that the committee has is a report each year, a report to be submitted to the board of directors on or before May 1st of our year's activities, and some recommendations, and we're working on that, and we're tracking on schedule to be able to meet that deadline. Also, I think Bev will probably talk about this somewhat. We are one of the committees that have done some modification to our resolution. I'll just let Bev discuss that in more detail. So that concludes what I have to report on. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? Thank you. I know how much work goes into that process, Dan, and we really appreciate the Long Range Planning Committee. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you. And so next, Mr. Maurer, bylaws.
Is this on? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Bylaws Committee met March 14th at its regular meeting. All 5 voting members were present. In addition, we had 2 guests, Mr. Bartholomew and Ty Harper. We noted that the Bylaws Committee is still in need of a secretary. Mr. Bazone is moving to the land of bikinis and hurricanes. Anyhow, we're still looking for a secretary. We did have a quorum present, so we conducted business. The minutes of the February 14th Bylaws Committee meeting were approved without any change. The chair summarized comments made at the February board workshop when new PPOA President Bob Kamen asked about secret ballots. PPOA bylaws, Article 6, Section 9, is the only place in the governing documents the word signed is used relative to ballots. Texas Property Code 209.0058, subsection D, as in dog, permits a property owners association to adopt rules to allow voting by secret ballot, in other words, not signed, by members, provided the rules reasonably ensure that a member cannot cast more votes than the member is eligible to cast, and the association must count every vote cast by a member that is eligible to vote. And I suggested to Mr. Kamen that the election committee should initiate a DCR to adopt a bylaw change to permit secret ballots. However, it was pointed out that such a change would require a member vote. Normally, that would be held in late 2017 or early 2018, and therefore could not become effective, if approved by the membership, until the 2019 election. And that's still the position, I think, of the Bylaws Committee. The chair opened a discussion about Mr. Robert Zemsky's email asking if a DCR would be needed to modify Section 16 of the Rules and Regulations, since a 2017 member vote approved changing from using 2 envelopes to 1. The Bylaws Committee chair believes the response is yes. If you're going to change the rules and regulations, you ought to have a DCR. The DCR should also be initiated by the election committee or its assigns, and the Bylaws Committee can assist in this process as needed. We're expecting quite a few bylaw DCR coming forward in the near future. I would recommend that all committee chairmen take a very close look at the DCR procedure as outlined in policy section 23. And be sure your DCRs are complete. Don't come into the committee with incomplete DCRs. The committee does not know what you want to do unless you put it down in writing. And some of the DCRs might end up being a little bit wordy, but in the recommended wording, I personally have initiated a DCR for changing the bylaw committee resolution. And in the recommended wording, all I did was attach a copy of the existing committee resolution. I called it Exhibit A. And in the current wording, I said, see Exhibit A. And in the recommended wording, I made a copy of what we're going to do, what we want to do, highlighting the change in red, and call that Exhibit B. And in the recommended word on the DCR, I put see Exhibit B. So I didn't have to retype all of that work. But when it comes to the committee, we'll know exactly what you're wanting to look at and how you want to change it. And if you come in with abbreviations or shortcuts, it probably is not going to get through the committee. Thank you. That's just a little help on the side. Okay. We will be reviewing the status of the committee resolution for bylaws in the near future. After some discussion, we voted 4-1 to approve, recommending that the board approve DCR RR 17-01-001. This is relative to deliveries on Sundays, and it was initiated by the Safety and Security Committee, as I understand it, to reflect what is actually being done. Next item that...
I'm sorry, what was that? Could you repeat that, what it refers to?
When different kinds of persons, be they contractors, subcontractors, vendors, whatever, utility, I don't know. When they show up at the gate and they want to come in on Sunday, the way the thing is now stated, they're not supposed to let them in. The guards, however, being an assign of the general manager, are allowed to let people in if their reason is appropriate. We had an occasion on Sunday where some person's members' freezer failed on them, and so they contacted a local appliance dealer, and he showed up at the gate with a freezer. Well, the guard didn't know what to do. Well, obviously, we want it to be clear, so the guards let him in, which makes sense to me, to everybody, I guess. I mean, if my freezer went out, I'd want him to be able to come in. Anyhow, we changed the rules so that it was clear that the guard can make the decision because he is an assign of the general manager. And the general manager, through his chain of command, we're letting them in, and the guards are making the decision. That's what we're doing now. The DCR put that in writing. We approved it. 4-1. There was only question had to do with what is a legitimate delivery on Sunday. But the committee voted 4-1 to send that on up to the board. And there is a board member that's on our committee that can discuss that with the board in greater detail as to their reasons for not voting for it. I'm not going to get into that. Bylaws Committee voted 5-0, which is unanimous, to table DCR RR 17-01-002 due to confusion on the use of an attachment without reference to it on the DCR form. Hopefully the initiator can clear up this item by complying with what we need to have on the DCR form so the committee doesn't have any doubt as to what's being asked. This again came from the Safety and Security Committee, and I think this is the second time we've had to send that one back, but I'm sure we'll get it cleared up next time. The committee voted 5-0 to approve, recommending that the board approve DCR RR 17-01-003, again submitted by the Safety and Security Committee, concerning flagrant violation wording to allow suspensions for not flagrant, whatever you want to call it, suspensions to begin immediately. For example, I think we've had some behavior issues that were classified as flagrant violations, and the existing procedure doesn't clear on when that suspension may start. Well, if it's somebody that's fighting, creating a problem. We want the suspension to begin immediately. The safety committee wants it to begin immediately, not wait a month or whatever. So we approved that one 5-0. The bylaws committee voted 5-0 to approve, recommending that the board approve DCR PL-17-02-004, which, as Mr. Christ pointed out, has to do with the capital asset policy. And I didn't write down your new wording for that, but it was approved, and the board will have it on its agenda in the future. Okay, 2 bylaw committee members advised they will be out of town on April 11th, the date for the next bylaw committee meeting. Hopefully we'll have 3 there. There will be a quorum. We can continue to act. The chair noted that he had responded to a request from the administrative executive assistant for input to the long-range planning spreadsheet about repair/upkeep of existing amenities and new amenities, both 0 to 5 and 5 to 10 years. It was suggested, 1, that updating the PPOA website needed to be added to the section of the long-range plan dealing with repair, upkeep of existing amenities. That website is a very valuable tool for the bylaws committee, and I presume some of the members. If it's not, it needs to be. That's where you go to get the official, written, documented what's going on. And 2, adding the repair/upkeep and timely preparation and recording in Hood County and Johnson County County Clerk's Office of the PPOA Management Certificate, which is a requirement, Texas Property Code 209.004. The DCR procedure was written. The DCRs need to be completed and acted on and approved or disapproved before the end of the year, because we file that document, which is a copy of every page of our governing documents. It's filed with the county clerk in Johnson County and Hood County. And that is an expensive process, but we do it once a year as required by law. Okay, we think that ought to be on the long-range plan to do that. And, I think it's on the checklist for the management team already. Okay, the chair advised members of the committee that no decision has been made concerning the 2015 Texas legislature action on, and I'm not going to read all of these, 33 Senate and House bills. Michael said our attorneys do not think PPO needs to change any of its governing documents because of the 2015 legislature action. That completes my report. Anybody want to make a comment? That's fine. I'd be happy to listen.
Thank you, Mr. Maurer. I do have one question. Going back up to, I think it's your item number 3, reference Sunday entrance of workers. Assigning the guard the authority is probably will make it convenient. What recourse does a member have if a guard refuses entry and a member still feels that they have a
I would suggest
circumstance that needs to be hand managed?
If that's on a Sunday,
yeah,
I don't really know. It's not documented, but the general manager is not present, and I'm not sure safety man is present. But go ahead, Michael.
Situations like that, Mr. Harper will be text or email to make that decision at that time.
So we have assurance that either Mr. Harper or you, Michael, would be available to make that decision.
Yes, that's correct.
And the guard would know that.
Yes, the guard knows the call Ty. That's what happened during the last incident we had, not incident, situation we had.
Just one comment. I am the board rep to bylaws, and I am the one that voted no on this. My feeling is that our population is such that the only time someone may not be working is on Sunday, and so that may be the only time they could have a refrigerator delivered or a piece of furniture. So the other committee members did not agree. It will come to the board, and I'll probably have the same objection because, number one, I think that, as I said, we have changed, and number two, to put that onus on an individual to make that call, I'm not sure that's fair to do that. And, and be consistent with, our guards change frequently, and one guard may look at it differently than another guard. And so, anyway, I know that there's a backup to text, but just if we had it real clear that we either allow it or we don't allow it, but to have it be, we may allow it, I think that brings up a lot of subjective observations.
Thank you, Ms. Franson. I appreciate your membership on the Bylaws Committee, and I certainly appreciate your willingness to express your opinion anytime about anything. And I'll guarantee you it carries a lot of weight with me for any Bylaw Committee member to give me his full participation. Sometimes it may seem like I'm kind of rubber stamping everything that comes along, but I assure you, I don't want this committee to become a rubber stamp. And I'm sure the board is not going to become a rubber stamp either, and it shouldn't. We've got too many problems can derive from the past with rubber stamping changes to our rules, and that's why we have a rigid and strictly enforced document change request procedure. And thank you, Beverly, for volunteering that information. It's not my desire to tell anybody who votes how. That's not a secret ballot, but I will keep it in confidence. Thank you.
Staying on this topic, a prohibition of any activity on any particular day of the week to me seems to be a throwback to the blue laws environment that we live through, most of us live through in Texas. And so it is of concern to me, since Sunday is not the day, the seventh day for all religions, and I believe that's what this Sunday prohibition would be based on. So that would be one that I think that we might want to take a look at because much of what's happening in Texas is moving away from that. So
let me make a statement. The intent is not that it's a religious holiday. The intent is it's a holiday, and do you want contractors coming in with big flatbeds, pre-positioning 20 squares of shingles on Sunday? And the intent was to keep contractors from doing big deliveries to Pecan. I don't think it ever was intended to keep residents or members from having personal property or household goods delivered. That's what it does. Yeah, so I'm good with the exception, but I just as well not have Lowe's show up with a giant flatbed truck or 84 lumber and drop it off on a lot on a Sunday. And they can schedule and do it Monday morning. It's not an issue with them. It shouldn't be an issue. The same thing, so any of the contractors is who we really, the intent was to keep them from doing deliveries. And I think the exception for personal property makes a lot of sense, and I think we can live with that. And we can make it where it's not just Ty Harper or his security guys have to make a decision. it ought to be pretty simple that we can draft this bylaw change it to exempt personal property.
One of the things I asked is, is a definition for a delivery person, or what is a delivery? Because I agree, there's a difference between delivering shingles and delivering a refrigerator. And one that's tied to a construction project would not, in my opinion, be considered a delivery person. And, as it states in the recommended change, you can take a look at it. It says no work, the new recommended change is no work including deliveries shall be permitted on Sunday except with prior approval of the manager. So right now it does not include deliveries, but they're inserting no work including deliveries. So they're being very specific about the language that they are adding to this bylaw. So we'll take a look at it. I'm sure the board will have discussions.
Staying on this subject, question for Mike and Ty. My recollection of how our Menlo agreement reads is that that's a prohibition that does not have to be followed by the developer. Is that right?
That's correct. He has unencumbered access to the facility.
So again, that raises a kind of an imbalance in how our rules are constructed. So I don't know where we would look at this. I know how as a member here that doesn't necessarily observe that as a holiday, that particular day as a holiday, I would request that be re-examined, because I think it's something that we if the majority of the members continue to wish to observe that, that's fine. But I'd like to take a look at that. There was the other issue that I wanted to mention or emphasize that Mr. Maurer described initially, and that is the requirement for us to sign ballots. I believe that it's unconstitutional, and I know that the law is the law of the land until it's challenged in court. But it's interesting that this particular requirement for signed ballots, if you look at the statute in section D, as I recall, says that if an association requests or desires to conduct elections without signing ballots, they have a certain number of procedures they must follow. And even though we did pass a bylaws change that allows us to go from 2 to 1 envelope, we can, I think, allow a unsigned ballot even with a 1 envelope procedure, because as long as we have the member number on the outside of the ballot, and that's recorded and checked properly, we can then pull the ballot, put it in a stack of ballots to be validated, that are validated and then counted. So I believe strongly in this. I think that we should not sign our ballots. There has been an argument counter that says, oh, well, when people sign their ballot, they sign it in a way that you can't tell who they are. That's not an answer for me. And I really believe strongly that we should not have to sign a ballot. I would hope that bylaws or the election committee moves forward with this. The concern I have with the election committee is that it's a committee that's not activated until our own election season. So I'm not sure that really is going to be helpful. Nevertheless, I'll pursue this, Bob, and we'll see the best direction that we can take.
Mr. Kamen, I agree with you, but as long as our bylaws have the word signed in them, then I think we need to comply with it.
Absolutely.
And the Texas law does allow us a procedure where we can get around that. And I don't want the bylaws committee initiating DCRs and then later voting on whether they're good or bad, or right or wrong, or recommended or not recommended. I try to keep the bylaws committee at arm's length so that we can make a honest, intelligent decision concerning any member's request for a change. That's why I suggest the election committee is the place for that to start. And if the board wants to start it a different way, please just don't ask the bylaws committee to start it. Be happy to review it. Be happy to give them any information I can. But as our bylaws say, it requires a member vote because it's a change in the bylaws. It's a simple change, but I still think the place to start it is the election committee. However, that's only one person out of 3,000. The board has the option to do what they want to do on this item. I'm simply reporting what happened in the bylaws committee, and it will continue to happen that way until Mr. Bartholomew can take over his management and do it. I don't care, as long as it's not the bylaws committee. But somebody that's a lot more familiar with the details of the election process, I think, should be initiating a request to change something in that process.
All right, well, we'll try and figure out how to proceed with this and to see if there's any kind of consensus, or am I the only one on the board that feels we should move forward with it? Thank you, Mr. Maurer. As usual, your committee does a great job.
Thank you.
Jim Miller, you ready? ACC.
Okay, the ACC, as you
Sure.
The ACC meets twice a month, as most of you know, so we spend a lot of time in the office down there. We met the 16th. Only 3 of the voting members were not present, which was good. We had 2 houses approved, which is good. We continue to do that. We had 11 miscellaneous permits. There's a lot of modifications. Nearly every time somebody buys a house, they go change it, which is okay. Interesting thing, as the weather has warmed up, we had 4 in-ground swimming pools approved this time, and 1 hot tub. We had 2 construction revision requests, which is kind of unusual, and no extensions, which is good, meaning that the contractors are getting after what they're trying to do, instead of letting somebody sit for a long time where they have to come back and request an extension. I'd say that by and large, architecturally, we're doing pretty good. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Miller, ACC? We had 2 houses last month. I know that...
That's correct.
We're anxious about the growth of our community. Do you see any trends that in the past year or so?
Well, construction of new homes has been, I would think, after having been on this committee a while, it's been pretty good. Our trend has been up. The last 6 months, maybe it kind of leveled off, but we almost always have houses under construction, always have. I think there's, well, I'm not sure. I think there's 14 or 15 houses under construction right now. And it's exciting. Some of the houses that are being built are pretty unique. I think there's one that if you have a chance to drive by and look at, it's at the corner of Air Park and Air Park. When you turn off and go down to Air Park and turn this way and go south, a big house going up there, the biggest hangar I've ever seen. I don't know what kind of airplane that guy has, but I don't think it's big enough for a 747, Bob, but it's an attractive house. The only thing it has done is all of us that live east of there that want to go to the airport fly-ins, we can't go through there anymore. We're going to have to go around. But we'll put up with that. Anything else?
I've got
go ahead.
a comment. Although the construction's been pretty robust, most of those are existing lots, and very few are new lot sales. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know that we've tracked that, but that's probably true. But it's good to have new construction going on. Some of the people I know are building homes on their lot and will move out of a rental or a home that they have that they're going to sell. So anytime there's new construction and not a lot of vacancies, that's a good thing.
I do note that on Wedgefield, across from the entry into Plainview Park, a house that was built there, I presume it's a spec house, and it's been empty since it looks like it's been empty since construction, which was completed about a year ago. So there are some houses being built that haven't been occupied yet. Yeah.
That's correct, but I think...
But the builder is paying dues on it?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Yes, no?
No, they do. I don't think they do until the house is sold. Is that right, Michael?
Depends on how many lots they have, but they pay dues with only one lot.
Okay, that's right. If they have a block of lots.
Unless it's a developer.
Well, the developer. Okay, the developer's another world. That's if it's an individual lot and a guy goes in and builds a spec home, he starts paying on that. But if he, 10 lots?
That's correct, 10.
If you own 10 lots, you don't have to pay the assessments until the houses are built.
Pay one assessment for all 10.
Yes, one assessment for all 10.
Okay, any other questions or comments for the ACC committee report? If not, thank you, Jim. Finance, Tom Basone.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met yesterday at its regularly scheduled time, and we reviewed 6 authorizations for capital expenditure. The first was ACE 17-10-12 for concept proposals, and that was presented by John Thomas. The 2017 budget included $30,000 to obtain design proposals for the renovation of the 19th hole and the pro shop. In order to get a range of designs and corresponding cost estimates, it was decided to engage 3 design companies for initial concept proposals and then choose among them for the completion of the projects. The total requested for these initial design proposals was $10,000 of the budgeted $30,000, the remainder to be used toward the final project costs. The ACE was unanimously approved for presentation to the board in the amount not to exceed $10,000. Is John here?
John, any other
do you want to make any
comments that you'd like
comments
to
on
make?
that? Okay. I'm good.
Any questions?
Want to grab a mic?
Yeah, no, it's pretty simple and straightforward. We invited 13 different firms to come in. 7 of them showed up, and 5 of them essentially decided to participate. One of those combined, so it was actually 4 final participants, and we chose 3 of those to move forward with on the concept drawings. Again, this is just an initial vision concept of what they think they could produce with the area provided, and then cost estimates of what the construction for that project would be based on their experience in the past. So it's pretty simple and straightforward.
I know, Lou, you're probably going to talk about it in your report, but you want to make a comment now about them?
Well, I think the submissions by those who responded to our initial request were pretty favorable in terms of the quality of people who elected to participate. Of the 4 teams, I guess is the right terminology, a couple of them probably are a little suspect, and we may alter whether we go back for 2 of those to participate or 3, because I think our analysis and our committees have not sat down together to look it over. We have to think about how their submissions responded to what our requirements were, and a couple of them did very well, and one in particular did not. So what John is saying was we will move to the next step with either 2 or 3 of those who will give us a footprint of what they see is doable in that space, both for the pro shop and the 19th hole. And from that, we would select someone then to go to detail with construction documents before that would then allow us to go to the construction community for build.
Did we give them a budget to work under, or they just are just going to come back with whatever they recommend?
Well, right now, we have internally some budget numbers that would need to be validated by the architectural and the construction community. Typically, you can go back almost to anyone who's done a major construction project, and when you get to the architectural drawings, detailed drawings of all of the components, it can be from 8 to 10, typically 10% of construction costs. And when we go back to the next iteration, they will come to us with what they see as their fee for design. That gives us our indication of what the final construction cost is likely to be. A lot of that, of course, is driven by the market. If the market is hungry, you get favorable numbers. If the market is saturated with work, then the numbers are not necessarily as conservative as we would like. But you never find this out until you go to the marketplace and see what they can do for you. Do we give the 3 contractors $10,000 each to do this, or $10,000 total for all 3 of them? Total, yeah. It came back, 3 of them, one wanted 5, one wanted 2, one wanted 1. The one wanted 1 has some additional expenses tied to it. They want to come and spend more time on the ground in developing their submission, and I think they've given us a couple of grand as the max that they would charge for that. So, the 10 is total for all 3.
Okay, thanks.
This is a pretty complex process, and for all of those that are involved, finance and management and food and beverage, House Food and Beverage Committee, I hope you are very thoughtful about documenting the process, irrespective of what comes from the outcome here. But this process would apply to other new projects or renovations. And so it would be very helpful that if, as you go through this process, you say, well, this worked fine, this didn't work, and so you would help the other committees around that have to go through it as we move forward.
Absolutely. And, I think we've talked about this, at least internally, with our committee and with management in terms of whether or not we would look at a highly qualified individual to manage not only this project but perhaps future projects.
Yeah, and that came out of our previous projects, that we have all agreed that we need a project manager on site as much as possible.
Right.
So that's appropriate. The other question I would have is that the 10% rule, how firm is that?
Negotiable. Always negotiable.
You think it's really close?
Yeah, it is. It really is close. And there are a number of ways to skin a cow, as you know, or cat, either one.
If you manage it yourself, you get a different number than if you have it managed by a general contractor. You know, as an example, if we put it out to bid after the architect has done his drawings, and it goes to the construction community, typically, a general contractor who builds buildings everywhere, and they have any number of subcontractors that they will go to have electrical, mechanical, concrete, all of those things bid back to them, and they normally carry about a 20% portion of the total for their, quote, management of the contract. If you manage it yourself, you cut out the middle guy. That has some advantages, and it has some disadvantages. The advantage is if you have a truly capable and knowledgeable project manager who knows how to write contracts and can write a contract directed to the concrete, directed to the electrical, HVAC, and all the components, then you save the overhead of a general contractor. But it's also one that's very at risk if you don't have a highly qualified project manager. So most people, not saying that it's always the best way to go, literally have a general contractor who does all of the management. Even with that, you need someone on our staff, meaning our association, to make sure that what the contracts that are being, services that are being provided by each vendor does in fact respond to what our requirements are. And it's also important that when we look at the drawings that the architect has put together, that we have covered all the bases to make sure that everything that has to be done is concluded in the technical drawings, because architects, you know, are human as well. And sometimes they will miss what we wanted, and if we didn't review it properly, then we start generating change orders, and that drives the cost up because contractors will clean your clock every time you do a change order. So you're right. There are lessons to be learned, and there are things that we need to be very specific about as we move forward.
Well, I'm hopeful that this moves forward. It is a complex process because besides the three that I mentioned, it also involves the golf committee, and Mike's not here today, but you know, if we can get this project completed, where we have house food and beverage, and we have the golf committee working together with management and with under the proper finance controls, I think it'll be important as we move forward. So thank you all. And Tom, you want to continue?
Yes, thank you. Okay, the next ACE we reviewed was 17-03-03 for replacement of the motor in a 2013 Kia Soul security patrol car. That was presented by Ty. This ACE has already been approved by both the Finance Committee and the board in the amount of $2,600 with a 10% overage contingency. You know, the vehicle needs to be back in service as soon as possible, and Ty has confirmed that the repair is actually already in progress. Based on the age of the vehicle and its physical condition, the proposed repair appears to be the best and most economical course of action. Since we didn't get a chance to review it during the e-vote, I just wanted to make sure we knew all the things that were going on here.
It is back in service now.
It's already done. Good. Okay. The next ACE we reviewed was 17-10-09 for replacement of the golf course spray rig. That was presented by Michael Underwood. This equipment is used daily and is essential for maintaining the course with applications of fertilizers, herbicides, etc. The current equipment requires constant maintenance and is beyond repair. The ACE was unanimously approved in the amount not to exceed $5,000 I'm sorry, that's the wrong amount of money. It was unanimously approved for presentation to the board in the amount not to exceed $44,500. It's a pretty expensive piece of equipment. Is Michael here? Michael, you want to say anything about that?
No, sir, I'll take any questions, but it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Excuse me. How old was the one that we're replacing?
It was purchased in 2008.
Was this the same spray pump that you sent over to Dick Kites to repair?
Yes, it is.
Did that repair not work at all?
Oh, that repair worked. The problem with the spray rig is it's 8 years old, it's got several thousand hours on it, and we require a spray rig that's ready to go right now every day. When we have a disease outbreak on the golf course, we can't wait for it to be repaired. If something's wrong with it, it's got to be ready to roll every single day. And it just reached the age where, like, we went without it for about a month this year because there were some parts that were difficult to get when they finally came in, and we took them over to Mr. Kite, and he helped us with those, with some of his machine tools. So we're kind of behind right now because we went most of February without the spray rig in operation.
So in the 9 years of the old one, how many of those emergencies did it impede us, or is that just recent?
We had one of those situations similar to that last winter, and then we had this other one happen this winter.
Is this a self-contained sprayer, a motorized tank?
Yes.
Boom, the whole thing?
Yes, the whole thing. It's a diesel rig so that the gasolines that we've seen used over the years don't last near as long as the diesels, so we go with the diesel.
And did we get multiple bids for that? I may be asking a question.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Probably 10 altogether, but yeah, we presented 3 to the Finance Committee and selected the one that we thought was the most financially advantageous to the club.
So I'm curious about the failures that you experienced. I mean, it's like, is it engine problems, spray
Well,
problems?
they vary. You know, you'll have, but primarily it's to do with the pump. That's the primary problem that you'll run into. We'll have problems with the clutch, you know, typical problems that you have. The engine, we never had an engine failure with that machine. I would say that out of 95% of it would be pump related. Then you'll have some failures with some hoses, hydraulic hoses and stuff like that. Also with some couplers.
What happens to that one?
That one will be passed down to Roads and Grounds as a non-replaceable item. FYI, I've been here for 18 years. We've had 2 spray rigs in 18 years, so we've had a pretty good record, I think, with spray rigs. If it's something that's used as much as they are and as critical as they are. A lot of people may not realize just how accurate the applications are. We set those things at 0.92 gallons per 1,000 square feet so that we can spray 5 acres when we're spraying fairways. When we spray greens, we set them at 1.45 gallons per 1,000 square feet so that we can spray 3 acres. We try to keep our water up on our green spray so it gets the best activation that you can get. So they're pretty accurate. They're not just things you run down and buy at Home Depot.
Mike, is there a better way to do it, or is this the way to go?
This is the way to go.
The way.
Yes.
All right.
I only recommended what I thought was the best way to go.
Okay. Any other comments on this item? Tom?
Okay, the next ACE was also from Michael Underwood for replacement of our, it's ACE 17-10-10 for replacement of our Jacobson triplex mower. The mower was purchased in 2005 and it's basically no longer worth repairing. The ACE was unanimously approved in the amount not to exceed $31,771. Any questions on that one? Okay, the next ACE was 17-10-11 for replacement of the air hockey table at the PAC, and that was presented by Keith Casterlin. The current table is literally coming apart and presents a potential safety hazard for users. The replacement is professional grade to be more durable, to stand up even to overzealous adult players. Keith obtained several bids and accepted the lowest among them, which was $1,895 below the budgeted amount. The ACE was unanimously approved for presentation to the board in the amount of $3,105, with an allowance for a 10% contingency overage to cover unexpected price increases. The prices of these things vary quickly and suddenly, so we gave him a 10% overage in case he needs it. Any questions on that? Okay, the next...
Keith, you want to make a comment about that? Yeah.
It is one of our most used pieces of equipment, and it's absolutely necessary, just like Underwood's equipment.
I'm not sure the golfers would agree, but okay. The next AC. I'm sorry. Okay. The next AC was 17-10-13 for pool leak repairs, also presented by Keith Casterlin with an assist from Daniel Van Patten. The clubhouse pool continues to be a problem due to its age and its less than desirable FiberTech surface coating. It has developed significant leaks, most notably around the skimmers, but likely elsewhere as well. The repair contractor will perform a leak test to make sure all of them are addressed. These repairs should get us through the coming swimming season, but much more substantial repairs are certainly down the road, not far down the road. The ACE was approved for presentation to the board in the amount of $3,000 with a 10% contingency overage for the unpredictability of the extent of the work needed. Any questions?
Mike, I'd like you to just make a comment about both of those issues that affect the pool that we are going to have to deal with, because it's pretty important for the clubhouse amenity itself.
Yeah, we found during the course of this investigation that the pool has some major cracks beneath the current FiberTech surface. So we had $80,000 budgeted for this year to re-plaster the pool. Replastering the pool is not an option because of the subsurface cracks and the electrical issues that also are associated with the pools and the lights. So that we could have the pool operational this year, we're going to replace or fix all the skimmers with a polyurethane foam, and then look at major renovation of the pool next year. So we'll be able to open up this year. And
my understanding is that as they looked at making those repairs, they finally realized that when they identified what the needed repairs were, besides the high cost, they couldn't get it done in time for opening on Memorial Day weekend.
Memorial Day, yeah. Correct.
So we're putting it off for a year, and then next year we're going to try and get started early and get it done in time. And it's not going to be an inexpensive process. But the clubhouse pool is so important to us that we need to do it right.
I want to add one thing, though. Some of the repairs we might try in this budget cycle, since we already have $80,000 budgeted, immediately after the swim season closes. We might start, you might see this project going, part of it starting right before the next fiscal year, to use some of this budget money, and then by that time we'll know more of the extent that we can budget for the next following year. Like, in a perfect world, we'll probably start the electrical problems immediately after this season, because it takes so long to get that done.
Can you reassure us that the quote electrical problems are not going to fry some of our swimmers if something happens?
Well, it hasn't yet, and we did replace a lot of the electrical in the pump house this last year. So we fixed a lot of the main electrical feeds in there with GFI circuit plugs and everything, and we typically only turn on our swimming pool lights during our street dance right now. So we should be good. Daniel's pretty certain that we're going to be okay leading up to next year, but a lot of these are some code issues that we got to face and, other problems. So, right now the biggest thing is the leaks on it. And what wasn't said is what we had a diver go down and do a dye test to show us the initial leaks, which showed up in the skimmers and the lights, and they're going to try to fix those. But until that's done, we cannot even pressure check the system to show the integrity of the main plumbing. So that may disclose much bigger issues for this next year. I mean, we could have a collapsed line. All we know at this time is we got the skimmers leaking, the lights leaking, the subsurface is cracked and leaking, and we lose hundreds and hundreds of gallons of water every single day. So, hopefully we'll slow that down, get through this season, start the electrical work first, because the electrical work has to get done. That is like replacing all the light niches and everything. They have to saw cut, jackhammer out the deck to remove, light fixtures, get all the heavy construction work done before we address the actual surfacing inside the pool. So that's the plan.
Okay, well, stay where you are, Keith, for a minute. Sorry for my hesitancy, but I want to word this correctly. We need a member representation on this process, and I'm not sure why you are responsible for the clubhouse pool. I'm not being critical. I just don't understand it. But I do know that we need either someone from Sports and Rec or the House Committee to be a part of this process and to allow the membership to be informed of all the issues that are arising with the pool. So I would ask that you and Mike and Brenda and Lou get together and make a determination on which membership committee would be best serve the interests of the community in terms of having member representation as we make these decisions and then recommendations to the board.
Okay, fair enough. Are we going to have member representation on all facilities projects too? Because facilities doesn't have representation.
Well, I don't know, but I think this is important enough. We have a newly instituted House and Food and Beverage Committee, and I know that one of their projects coming up will be a master plan review. Is the pool part of the clubhouse, or is it part of Sports and Rec? I don't want to make that decision, but I think that y'all, what I do want is some member representation on that process. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, well, typically that's what we have with Sports and Recreation Committee. All these projects, they have to sign on off and are addressed at that level at the committee. So it's already been assigned to a committee, and then we call in Daniel, when needed for other advice. Personally, I don't think we need to involve other committees in this because it's already in an actual committee.
No, and so, Brendan, who on Sports and Rec has been part of that process?
When the issue comes up, we address it in the committee, in Sports and Rec meeting, and then we, like with everything else, we discuss it and we go from there. As far as a single individual, there's not. It's a committee decision, as is most other committees here.
Well, I would suggest you might have. It might be helpful to assign some one individual to be at least part of the process.
Okay. We'll talk about it. Our next meeting is the first Tuesday of the month.
Yeah, and hopefully we can have somebody that actually has intricate commercial swimming pool construction knowledge. So,
thank you. I think those are very readily available.
Okay, thanks.
The only question I have is on your estimate of the budget or the cost you were planning on doing it the next year. Are you going to be able to give a good estimate on the cost for next year's budget in the normal cycle?
Okay, I missed some of that. What was the question again?
You were planning on doing a lot of the work at the end of the swim season, which is after the normal budget process timeframe. Are you going to be able to obtain enough information to be able to put it in the normal?
Yes, that's what we're hoping right now. We have a good number on the actual resurfacing of the FiberTech surface. That's, the actual surface instead of plaster. We already have that number. That number is going to be a good number. That's what's going to end up following this next year. So that number would then be applied to this next year's budget number. The money that we have right now, the 80 grand, is going to be applied. In a perfect world, we're hoping we can get the appropriate bids on the electrical work done, which is actually a lot more intensive and right now is a lot of the unknown. And as soon as we get these skimmers fixed, the leaks, and they can leak check, we'll know if we have to address other issues with the actual plumbing, which then we could apply to next year. So, my answer is it should. If everything falls into place. We think we got a pretty good handle on it right now, and we think we got some good contacts with, the construction, commercial construction firms.
Okay, thank you.
I think that that's an amenity that's so important to us that I think the board will be very, very supportive of what the recommendations are.
Yeah, and just to assure the membership too, we have, what do we have, 4 commercial certified pool operator license within our division. So, Daniel's a certified pool operator, has a license, I have the license, a couple of other guys. And we also have great contacts that have been, helping us with advice on the commercial side to do with the pools. I mean, a lot of people try to compare these with a private pool. They are 2 totally different animals. You can't even use the same logic involved between that and a commercial pool. So,
Lou, you had a comment.
I have a question from a standpoint of what you've explained thus far in terms of the structural. Based on the structural deficiencies that you've already identified.
Yes.
At what stage do you make the cut your losses and say we have to replace the pool?
Well, to replace the pool, we're looking in upwards of approximately $1 million. You got 3 options right now. The actual shell underneath the fiberglass surface is severely cracked and has failed. We actually got in touch with the guy that did the repairs around 20 years ago on it, where they were trying to go for replasters, and they found like 5 layers of replastering work. So replastering is not the fix. They kept showing up, within a year to 2 years. So that's why they originally went with the fiberglass coating on the shell. That's what that product's for. We asked them, the guys bidding out, what can we do? And basically there's just 3 things we could do. 1, you could build another pool shell inside the cracked shell, which then you're going to lose about a foot around the entire pool, and then you have to go in the surface. At that time, you can go back with plaster, or, you probably would go with plaster if you did the shell. And the next thing would be to totally demo the pool and then build one, like they'd expect that they put out in building communities now. They're more shallow overall. They might have splash pad features, redo it. You're looking at $1 million. So the third is we go back with the fiberglass. So far, it's been doing its job pretty well. I mean, we're just discovering now it's almost 10 years since the last fiberglass. They expect it to last, 8 to 10 years, and then we know for long-range planning we can just go back with another fiberglass coating. That is assuming the plumbing's okay. So, there are constant upgrades and work. I mean, we're going to have to eventually address the stuff inside the pump room, which might be commercial filter, eliminate, the more residential style filters in there. We got 4, and do some of the plumbing. What we're hoping is we don't have main line problems and we can get it going. So that question is saying, do we look at spending $100,000 now, maybe $120,000 now, and it lasted us 10 years? Or you're looking at spending $500,000 to put a shell in and redoing it? And if you go with plaster, you're looking at a replaster about every 5 to 7 years if you go with the high-grade plaster. So, just fiscally responsible. This has been doing its job. If we can get it running and keep it running until that point that you have to tear out the whole deck and all the main lines, we assume we'd probably stay with that.
Is it in the queue, Dan, for long-range planning?
It always is as a replacement on the replacement asset schedule, not as a long-range plan on rebuilding the pool. It's in the asset replacement schedule.
It also strikes me that all these options you're talking about, because there's a lot of money involved and there's time involved, there needs to be a pretty thorough cost-benefit analysis of all those options. Rather than just picking one out, there ought to be a thorough analytical process for deciding that.
But we can get to that after we get through this swim season and we find out what condition our plumbing's in. And then, yes, sir?
Is there any reason to think that what's behind the concrete, in other words, the dirt, that there's a fracture there? That it's like a road. The blacktop may fail, but if the base under it is no good, it doesn't hurt to replace it doesn't help to replace the blacktop. You got to fix the dirt behind it. And having had experience with the developers' work out here, my question is, do you know anything about the soil behind the concrete as far as its integrity?
We do not, but we actually did ask these construction firms, and they seem to not think that would be an issue right now.
How did they check it? Did they drill it and take core samples?
No, they didn't take any core samples or drill anything. The issue is either we replace the pool for about $1 million or we repair what we have. The current plaster in there, the FiberTech that's in there is not worth removing and trying to repair the plaster, but what the FiberTech does is it prevents that. It helps with the expansion and contraction of that plaster that's moving in there and any loss of integrity in that base or that soil behind it. So the FiberTech is basically acting as a buffer to the conditions underneath it, and that's what's holding it together.
Mr. President, I have a question here.
Go ahead, Bob.
How much water are we losing on that thing every day?
We haven't calculated the exact usage, but we've got a water hose that's running over half on at 60 PSI all day, every day.
So figure that cost in there. What's the schedule for fixing this thing to stop this leakage? April?
Next month, yeah.
Oh, okay, thanks. All right.
Yeah, it's a major issue for us now, and it's emerging that way. And so we're going to have to spend some resources on it. It's an important part of this community, and so again, we want to do it the right way and move forward. Last comment, Lou, go ahead.
I was going to say, thanks for the response, because what you're doing are the same thing that we as a committee are doing in relation to the entire building and all of its elements, because like the pool, it's been here a while, and as we start to think about modernizing it or meeting the needs of our community as we go along, both present and future, we have to think of the cost benefit of what we do and how we do it. And that's one of the things that our committee, I guess, was kind of charged with as a result of our input to long range, was not only look at what we think we need to do in the short term, but what's the impact of the entire building, the entire facility, and its ability to serve our community in the out years. Mr. President, one more comment here, and primarily addressed to Tom here. When we look at the capital reserves, and we look at it and it looks comfortable at this time, but when we hear these issues and problems down the road, we may not be as sound as we think we are, because we have a lot of expenditures that are coming down the road. So I think that has to be sort of watched.
Right. The Finance Committee is going to be paying more and more attention to that in conjunction with the Long Range Planning Committee as we go through this camp process. I mean, you're dealing with an aging infrastructure here that's going to require more and more work, more and more capital reserves to keep going. We're seeing this with the roads and grounds now, but it's going to be the same thing with what we're dealing with here.
So we're coming to a kind of a meeting of the pressures on this community of the aging infrastructure and their costs versus a reluctance to increase the funding to cover those things. So, I don't know if it'll happen this year or next year, but soon we're going to really have to face it in terms of how we fund this community's amenities, and so this is a good example of how that'll emerge. Yeah, Tom, you got anything else?
That's it on the ACEs. Moving on to the financial reports, Janishevsky reported that for February 2017, revenues exceeded expenses by $37,536 versus a budget of just $3,505 for a positive variance to budget of $34,031. Year-to-date revenues exceeded expenses by $46,575 versus a budget of negative $15,524 for a positive variance to budget of $62,099. So we're okay for now. The current year-end projection stands at a surplus of only $1,896 as opposed to last year, which was much higher projection. There continues to be a reduction in ad sales and construction-related revenues that management and the Finance Committee will monitor through the rest of the fiscal year and recommend appropriate action when necessary. Finally, the committee received a presentation from Bob Cote on proposed changes to our financial reports aimed at providing better planning tools. The committee has agreed to study the proposals and work with Bob and management to determine how to tailor them to our needs. That completes my report.
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that. I was waiting for that to determine whether the Finance Committee was going to be helping on that process. But, Bob, do you have anything you want to say about that?
No, it's moving along. We had a good meeting in the Finance Committee yesterday, and the next step is we will present it to the board at our next meeting, so that everybody's on board with what we're trying to do here. But Tom and his Finance Committee are doing a great job.
Okay, well, thank you. I know, Bob, that you've worked very hard on this all year, and so we're appreciative of the two of you coming together and then making a recommendation to the board.
Well, one of the things, there was some concern expressed at the Finance Committee meeting about what effect this change in viewing our financials will have on the membership, and we want to make absolutely sure that before we change how we look at our financial reports, we're actually doing them correctly. So we want to work on getting that. Janice only saw this for the first time yesterday, and so we need some time to work on this to make sure that what we finally come up with, A, is accurate, and B, is a useful tool for management.
I'm sure
if I could add, I have been monitoring what Bob Cote has been proposing, and I'm very supportive of his effort. I think it makes it better for membership to understand what they're spending their dues on. I think it's a good way to go, and I hope we'll work it all out and proceed on with it.
Dick, Treasurer, you want to make a comment? You can't just sit there.
I can't just sit here? It's a very interesting concept. There's $730,000 that goes into general and accounting to operate things like, say, the clubhouse. And so you have electricity that's being consumed at the clubhouse, and you don't know where that electricity is going. Is it going to the food and beverage to prepare meals? Is it going to the hotel? Is it going to the offices upstairs? So what Bob is proposing is a way to allocate these kinds of general expenses to different departments. And it gives you a better indication of the cost of running that department. It's going to be an interesting discussion internally to see how to do the allocation. You can do something very simple, like what Bob's proposal is. It may not be absolutely accurate. It might be close. To be absolutely accurate would be a huge effort. So we're going to have to be somewhere in between.
Okay, and I know there's a second part of this too as well that Bob's been working on, and that is the presentation format. So I'm very anxious about that. I like the way that's emerging, Bob.
It's good. I think the only hang up here is the method by which the allocation is accounted for. In other words, the percentages. That is a never-ending discussion that we can have. I think the generally accepted accounting principles simply state that these things have to be consistent, they have to be reasonable, and then it's not an exact science. In other words, it gives a better picture of the cost of operating our facilities. So we can, I'm sure there'll be discussions on this, and there'll be some modifications, and at the end of the day, we're going to do what's best for Pecan Plantation.
Okay, thank you. I see Sam has moved on, so I think that ends the portion of the reports to the board. So I guess, Mike.
Daniel, would you like to talk real quick about infrastructure and wildlife, just real quickly, if you can grab a mic?
Okay, the Infrastructure Committee met at its regular scheduled time. We went over the front entrance project that'll be coming up and the Westover Diversion Drainage Project. Both of those projects are out to bid. Bids are to be turned in no later than 5 p.m. April 3rd, and we will review them on the April 4th meeting. The topography from the engineer from the LIDAR, the flight, is just about completed. All the preliminary sheets are done. We ended up with, I believe, 212 sheets. I have reviewed quite a few. There's a little bit of tweaking that is going to need to be done. The engineer is also going to show up at the April 4th meeting to go over the new topography and make any changes that we feel we may need to it. I don't think we'll need much, but there may be some requests from some of the committee members to change some drainage divides or something like that, just to change the colors of the lines or something like that. And other than that, everything's going pretty well as far as infrastructure is concerned. Now going over to wildlife, or any questions on infrastructure? Going over to wildlife, we've been struggling with deer this year. They definitely have the process figured out. It seems like every time we have a management day scheduled, we encounter situations with storms or weather. For instance, we were planning on going out this Thursday night, but of course the big storm's coming in. We have 1 week left to go. The cutoff is March 31st at midnight, so I don't know how many more rounds, if any, will get in, and we are currently at 108 animals.
And we were scheduled for 300?
With the budgeted amount that we had, we could have got about 360, including feed and everything for the animals.
Any luck in recovering our cameras?
No, we had one camera completely destroyed. Actually, it was the control units for the trap sites that were taken, and we did recover one of them.
Do we think that people are actually doing something to putting something around those trap sites to keep the deer out?
Definitely. We've got some people that are going around, honking their horns. Had one area where they were either popping firecrackers or shooting a .22 caliber gun. And I think we also have folks that are actually spreading things around at the sites to run the deer off, a distractant.
I think it's too late this year, but I think next year, before we go into that, we ought to talk about some countermeasures that we can do if we're going to continue to try and trap deer and have this kind of interference.
Definitely.
Thank you, Daniel. Any other questions for Daniel?
Yeah, I have one more question here. Pretty much on what Ross just mentioned is that we're spending, I think, at least budgeted $100,000. Is that correct, Michael, on this?
That's correct, yes.
And if we're going to have interference by some people out there, I mean, that's costing us money. So we're spending money to do a very important job. We have to make sure that we try to do the best we can to stop that interference, and if it takes some security involvement or whatever it takes, I think we need to do that.
Yeah, we actually have a sheriff on site during trapping.
Good deal.
Stealing the cameras is a felony, so, we need to deal with that.
Any other questions for Daniel? Thank you, Daniel. Let's go on to airport. Ray Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. The Airport Committee met on its normal scheduled March 8th meeting. In addition to a number of maintenance issues, GPS approach, some status of projects that were going, glad to report that the EAA has pretty much reached an agreement to build a hangar on private property, thanks to Sam Butler's support in buying a private home that did not have a hangar. So the issue that was the genesis, at least, of the initiative to create a runway safety area, as we projected, has become moot. And while I'm on that, I want to thank the board and thank all the committees and thank the electorate in general for giving us the support to thoroughly defeat what was a very unsound proposal that, with only the requirement for a 50 ballot initiative, got on the election, and we were forced by our bylaws. Sure hope we can find a way to modify that, because I predict that that will come back to haunt us in additional ways. Fortunately, though, thanks to all of the membership and everybody for their support, and it got a rip-roaring 14% of a required 66 2/3% in order to pass. We are continuing to evaluate the how and if and when and where Plainview Park gets renovated. As you know, there's budget money for that this year, which will probably not be spent by the end of this year. But I have talked to Fire and EMS. I've talked to three other associations of various types so far. The helicopter pad badly needs to be relocated. It blocks the runway. It may affect the GPS approach. It is in an unsafe area and does need to get moved out away from the end of the runway. So we're looking at if we do that in conjunction with the other. So the Airport Committee has set an arbitrary goal for itself to have a decision on how, when, and where by a third meeting, which will be another 3 months from now. So we're assigned subcommittees, and we're working hard to try to develop the necessary data and information to make an informed decision, some of which is out of our control when we have not absolutely determined whether the FAA's GPS approach will be affected by the location of the work. And this is something we're trying to get feedback from. So some of it's within our control, some of it's not, but we've developed a list of questions, and the work is proceeding. So that concludes the report now.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
I just one question. When we authorize expenditures in a fiscal year and it's not spent, what does it carry over? How does that work?
It would have to be rebudgeted, but in general, it would carry over, but we would have to add that to the budget again. It doesn't automatically get put into next year's budget, but in all probability, it will.
Mr. President, I have one question. It has to do with the GPS. For a guy who's not in that business, does GPS, that's the approach, right? That come in, does it go to both sides of the runway, or is it just for one side?
Right. Both ends you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
You can get approaches from either end. Those are separate issues. We are requesting an approach from coming from the north, landing south, which is where the prevailing winds are. But it does work the other way in that if you make an approach from the north going to the south and the winds are prevailing the other way, once you get down below the cloud layer, then you can stay within the traffic pattern and circle around and come in and land visually once you get below the cloud deck. So it will work in the other way, but right now we're getting it only from the north.
Thanks. And the reason for my question is concerns for the helipad. I mean, if you go from the north to the south, you're going to have to move that helipad, I would think. I mean, that's basically what.
Well, that's one of the issues that we are dealing with, and I talked to Sandra Winfield and the Fire and EMS actually this morning at the Breakfast Club, plus before that, and they're very supportive of that. And I talked to them about egress and trucks and how far it has to be in order to get there, so that, I mean, recognize that what we had there was a volunteer effort from the Boy Scouts. They actually put that in as a Eagle Scout project themselves. Unfortunately, they didn't ask anybody about where to put it, and there was no input from the club or the airport committee or anyone to pick the location. And so we say thank you, but unfortunately, when the helicopter is on the pad, there's a continuous uncertainty if someone's trying to land. Does he come in and land over the top of that, which if the helicopter is just there idling, he could probably get by with, but if all of a sudden he decides to leave at the time the guy comes in and they aren't talking on the same radio, there's all kind of issues. The FAR regulations state that helicopters should, the only regulation really about their motion is that they should avoid the pattern of fixed-wing aircraft. So technically they ought to be off to the side away from where the fixed wing go, and it's in the wrong place. So that's one of the things that will need to be done in conjunction with the other areas that need to be updated and worked on.
But one more thing, to put us all at ease, though, there's no consideration being made about doing away with a helipad, right? It's either it's going to be moved, or we're going to have a helipad here. Is that correct?
We will not do away with it. There are actually 4 landing zones, I did not realize this, within Pecan that have been pre-identified where they know about high lines and things like that, so they can land in other places, but there is no intent to do away with that. The intent is to do it better and safer in a slightly altered location.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
And finally, moving that helipad, we have to have it near enough, or we'll have to build a new pavement so that the emergency vehicles can get to the helipad after it's been in place. So that's one of the problems you're facing.
I talked to Sandra about that today, and they do not need, and they currently don't drive the ambulance or the fire truck on the pavement down there past the parking lot. They bring them in on the gurney. And she said that it was not necessary to have paving all the way to it. High load paving anyway, maybe a walking area. So we're trying to cover all the bases so that when we do it right this time.
Any other comments, questions for Mr. Lewis? Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Let's go on to safety and security. Gordon Johnson and Ty Harper.
Well, thank you very much. I feel like the little boy that was riding his bicycle to school one day and he was late. Going downhill was just fine, but all of a sudden he was pedaling uphill and he said, well, the hurrier I go, the behinder I get. We had a meeting in February that was I entitled it being just a listening committee. Michael and Ty were not able to be there because they had other committees, other commitments outside of the plantation. And I had been reading Next Door Pecan and noticed that there were some comments in there that people were planning to be at that meeting. So having canceled it with the committee members, I said, whoops, better not do that. So rather than having a committee meeting, I went there with several members of the committee that came there to accompany me as we sat and listened to comments from members of Pecan Plantation. Their concerns had something to do with the stop signs that had been placed out at Ravenswood, Bell Chase, Montevideo. And so we heard what they had to say and decided that when we had our next meeting, which was going to be March, that we would then decide what we were going to do about that. We had a lot of very, I think, positive, constructive comments made from members at that meeting, and I invited some of those who were there at that day to come to any of the rest of the meetings that we have. We try to cover our issues that we have within the confines of committee membership. Some folks don't understand what we talked about in terms of confidentiality, but we do have some issues that we have members of the plantation or people who have been given a ticket for speeding or flagrant violations, as was referred to earlier in this meeting, that I feel like when we're discussing those issues, that the people who are being discussed or who are coming to visit with us and appeal the fine that they've been given, that needs to be done in confidential conversation. And the committee members understand that we don't talk about those issues and name any of those names outside of the committee. Hopefully the people in the plantation and the members will understand the need for having part of our committee meeting at least confidential. And then we'll open it up for discussion and input from membership in the new business category. We've been discussing and rediscussing and almost undiscussable anymore, the traffic study. We had a gentleman from the plantation several months ago who came to us with about a 34-page document where he was showing us what we needed to do in terms of speed limits on the plantation, suggesting that perhaps we ought to go to 25 miles an hour like our neighbors over in De Cordova. Maybe you've heard the same gentleman speaking to you about this, but we then talked about the possibility of having a professional traffic study done. One of our members very carefully and very decisively took that bull by the horns and came back to us with a proposal from a professional traffic study agency that said that they would charge us $2,500 to do that. Then when we came back saying, well, there are some other things we needed to have studied, they came back and said, well, it's going to be $10,000. Well, that means that we're going to have to rob Peter to pay Paul. And so that's still on the back burner at the present time, but it's something that I think we're going to have to take a look at. We do have people that think we should lower the speed limits. We have some people say that we should raise the speed limits in some areas. And we're looking at that from a safety vantage point and trying to figure out. We have two members of the committee currently who have some experience in this issue. So we'll continue to discuss that until such time as we think we would come back to the board with a recommendation that we have an official professional study done. We've had discussion again last week about drones. And Dick Kite and I have committed to each other that we will try to discuss this and come up with or study this issue as to how far it is from an active runway that you're allowed to be flying drones and what the altitude restrictions are. Because there are some people who have indicated that they're concerned about privacy. You know, people can fly these drones maybe looking into your windows that you don't want them looking into, or taking pictures of you in your backyard when you don't want them taking pictures of you in your backyard, and things of that nature. So that's one of the issues, again, that is being discussed. and when we come up with a resolution and the recommendation for the board action, then we will bring that to you. One final issue is there's been some discussion about security at night. We have a gentleman who has offered to resurrect the night watch. Some of you are familiar with the fact that in the past, David Leverton was chairing a group under the auspices of Safety and Security Committee that had volunteers that would be riding around at various hours of the night, just kind of taking a look at what was going on in the community, seeing if there was any untoward activity, is that a good word, untoward activity, that was going on, and that they would then be able to report that to the security person that was still on duty that night, or to call the sheriff's department if needed. So I'm still in negotiation with my goodness, why am I losing his name? Mr. Pump, to continue to resurrect that committee. I'm a volunteer on that committee. I'm on that group myself, to see what we can do about lessening some of the destructive behavior that has been taking place late at night and sometimes early morning. In the past, that organization would be active from maybe 11 o'clock at night until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. But some of the youngsters got wise to that, and so they decided they were going to be out at different hours of the night when they knew that they may not be spotted in their behavior. So we will continue to follow through on that and see what we can do to come up with, again, an active organization that will be trying to provide some security and some semblance of seeing what's happening in our community during the wee hours of the morning. I will ask Ty to give a report on some of the activities that he reported to the committee, and you'll see in the next issue of columns, right?
We started the meeting on March 8th at 9:30, and we dealt with 2 disputes, both of them speeding, and both of the disputes were upheld. We had a pretty quiet February, a couple of minor incidents right up until the last of February where we had a call to a welfare check where the daughter was concerned about the parent, and we went to that location and nobody answered, and we ended up getting the fire department, sheriff's department involved, and the person had passed away. So that's one of the tough things that we have to deal with. And while that was going on, there was a single car crash at another location in Pecan, just at the exact same time. So we went the whole month with very little things happening, and then everything happened all at once. We ended up writing 61 citations in the month of February. 43 of them, it was their first-time speeders. 6 of them, it was their second, and 2 of them, it was their third citation. 37 of the citations were on Plantation, 15 on Ravenswood, 3 on Westover, and the rest were on other streets. 43 citations were to members, 15 were to guests, 1 to a contractor, and 2 to vendors. The Sheriff's Department received 42 calls that concerned Pecan Plantation, and of those 42, almost all of them were 911 hang-ups, accidental calls, misdials, and 6 public service calls. So taking out all of that, that's 16 that were just those kind of calls, and the rest of them were just 1 or 2 of any kind of particular topic, ranging from agency assist to fire at a structure, walk-ins at the law enforcement center, and 2 welfare checks. And that concludes my report.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, you know, the majority of our speeding citations are on Plantation. I don't know if that's a reflection of our security folks being on Plantation more, or that road just simply encourages drivers to go faster there. I know that we talked about one of those electronic radar signs that tell you what your speed is. I find those very effective. Every time I see one, I slow down, whether I'm speeding or not. And I'm sorry we decided not to do that last time, and I encourage you to go back and look at that, to see if maybe that might, I think they're only $2,500, or I don't think they're that expensive. So just that comment.
Mr. President, I have a comment to make here. I'd like to make to Gordon and to the rest of the members of the board here, is that I was at the last security meeting, and there was an issue that came up there that had quite a number of members that showed up at this particular meeting. And I want to commend Gordon here for doing one heck of a job in keeping that meeting in order and resolving the issue to the satisfaction of the members. I thought it was an outstanding job, and I think that Dick, who was there also, would probably support that as well.
I would agree with that.
That was a heck of a job, Gordon.
Yeah, Gordon's been doing a great job. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Cousins.
Thank you for that.
Ms. Carnes?
Yeah, quick question, Ty, update on the security system, the gate entry?
Yeah, we have two companies right now that are coordinating their bids. One of them has submitted a bid, but it's incomplete. They don't have one of the gates included, and some of the prices are not all there, but we're working with them. And the second one, I'm supposed to have a talk with them sometime this week with their security person. So we're working on it.
I'm sorry. I meant to make one other comment. Maybe I should wait for Sports and Rec. But regarding Plantation Drive, Paul Graham is chair of a subcommittee, or is he working independently? Should I wait on this? Because it has to do with the widening of Plantation Drive. You want to make a report
Actually, on that? There is a representative from Sports and Rec, but there's also a representative from Grounds, and isn't there 3 committees that are in on in safety and security?
Infrastructure
all 3.
also?
Yeah, they're all 3, so it's not just one committee, it's joint.
Who can make a report? I'd like to have a report on that every month to see how we're progressing on that. I have a very strong feeling about that. That's another part of our infrastructure that's going to cost us some money.
If I may make a comment, I guess the lead committee for that would be Grounds, as Roger Merrill. He's not here today, but I'm on the Grounds committee. I'll pass that on to him and get more feedback. But yeah, that is an ad hoc committee made up of several other members from several committees.
Okay, so Mike, that will, if you would make sure that happens as well, and I want to see how that progresses this year, and I view that as, I think, a critically important safety issue for our community.
I would like to add that committee has, under the leadership of Paul Graham, has submitted that to the long-range plan. So that's in the process, the tracking process that we're instigating.
Thank you, Dan. Any other comments for safety and security?
Yes, I have one question for Ty. Ty, the stop signs at Ravenswood, Bell Chase have been removed?
2 of the 3 signs have been removed, and we have ordered a yield sign that we just didn't have one to put back on the end of Monticello. Okay. So that's being returned to the way it was.
Okay.
Joe, did you have something?
The one stop sign that is there, is that doing the job that you wanted it to do, or are people still?
No, that will be replaced with the yield sign. It was at the end of our last meeting with our committee. Committee action was to remove all signs and replace the one stop sign on Monticello with the yield sign that was there previously. Hopefully, that people would pay attention when they came up to that intersection.
I'd like to just say I'm personally disappointed in that.
Well, it attracted a lot more heat than it did light.
Have you had any heat on it since you've had the stop sign on Ravenswood part of that?
No.
Because to me, it was a very good move to knock out the other two maybe. But I've seen many people not even pause and go. They just go through that intersection.
Well, that was the problem, because a lot of people were not obeying the stop signs. They would just sail right on through it, and that made it very dangerous for people coming to make a turn or coming onto Ravenswood and Belle Chase. It'll be an issue that will be discussed and continue to be discussed, and look at it from a different vantage point in the future.
There are just rules of the road. Could you use the mic, Dan?
There are just legislatively rules of the road, how you drive an automobile, and a lot of people weren't complying with those, yield to the right. They just don't do that.
Well, that's true, and it's also true that a lot of people don't pay attention to the speed limits on the plantation.
Yeah, I would like to just additional information. I ride my bicycle frequently around Pecan, and the only time I've ever been run off the road was a pickup truck. I was going straight through that intersection onto Belle Chase, and a pickup truck was determined to go up Monticello and literally ran me off the road.
Well, we had that problem from other people who said the same thing, and that was a rationale beside trying, at the point in time, trying to get that established as being a checkpoint. It seems like there were folks that were complaining that once the stop signs were put there was too much noise from loud pickup trucks revving up their engines and getting around to be able to continue their trip after having to stop. And others were just pickup trucks blasting through it anyway. It's one of those issues that will have people discussing it for a very long time, I'm sure. And my hope is that putting the yield sign there at a safe distance back from the intersection means that people yielding will stop at a safe distance back from that intersection before, hopefully not getting run off the road or hit if somebody comes speeding around the corner.
And have you ever looked at rumble strips on Ravenswood coming up to it? Was that a hot issue? Forget it.
All right, I sat through many meetings with Gordon on this issue, and these stop signs and yield signs are unbelievable. They generate huge opinions. And the opinions that Gordon talked about, it generated more heat than light, was all about, why didn't you guys show us the study you did? Why didn't you hire an expert to come in here? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you spend more money? They didn't like the fact that a committee had made that decision. The people who were against the stop signs were very vocal. They were there for 2 or 3 meetings. People who were in favor of it didn't show. There was very little input. Nobody gave us any positive feedback on those signs. The concept of rumble strips is vehemently denied by the entire committee. Everybody hates them. Nobody wants to see those start to enter our community. Does that summarize?
Thank you, Mr. Kite.
You might want to have speed bumps out there.
Any other questions or comments for Gordon or Ty? Thank you very much, gentlemen. Brenda Palmer, Sports and Rec and Entertainment.
Okay, I live on Belle Chase, and I like the stop signs. All right. Just had to throw that in. Okay. Archery Air Gun Range. Mark your calendars for the upcoming Easter egg shoot Saturday, April the 15th. This event is open to anyone able to shoot a bow unsupervised. That's not me. Dog Park. Pooch Plantation Picnic in the Park is April the 1st. Dress your pups up in their best Easter finery and join the Easter Bunny for pictures and fun. Humans are invited as well. Pickleball. Fun days continue for members new and old who would like to improve their pickleball skills. Pickleball Association was invited to volunteer at the outdoor party in February for the kids at the Rancho Brazos Community Center. There were 22 kids in attendance,
and everybody had a really good time. I like to see it when these subcommittees of Sports and Rec go out into the other community to help out, and that was one thing. Also, Archer Air Gun is still having monthly events for the wet vets, so we do go out outside of the pecan community to be of assistance. Tennis. The USTA League is now playing in full swing. Good luck to all of our pecan teams. Our junior tennis drills are Tuesdays and Thursdays from 5:30 to 6:30, and summer camp sign-up sheets are already available at the tennis center. Senior softball, one of my favorite events. Practices returned, and the opening day had 30 participants show up for a very competitive game. Y'all really need to come out and watch these. They're quite entertaining. If you are interested in joining in on the fun, sign-up sheets are at the PAC. Campground. A big thank you to Daniel Van Patten and his crew for installing low-wattage light bulbs at the pavilion. We were there last night, made a very huge difference. Thank you. Plans are underway to change out picnic tables at the campground, as well as a signal amplifier to improve cell phone usage. This is something that's being done by one of our pecan members, and we're really looking forward to that being installed down there, because as you know, there's no cell coverage down there. Activity and Wellness Center.
Before you do the campground, is the situation of the light, I'm sorry, the light, I don't know, you call it the safety light, the street light at the campgrounds frequently is off. Is that an ongoing problem and we can't keep it from failing, or what?
The situation with that light is it's actually tied into one of the site pedestals. So whenever someone checks into that pedestal, they turn it off, they're all breakers on, and they're instructed to turn them all off when they check out, so they shut the breaker off.
Yeah, we are in the process of working with the front desk to see that issue is corrected.
Okay, good. I know it keeps coming up, the light's gone, and yeah, I think it's another safety issue.
Right. Okay. Plans, okay, we did that. Activity and Wellness Center. I'm sad to report that the proposed Activity and Wellness Center proposal failed to get the 66 2/3 vote in our recent election. I do want to throw in, we were 37 votes short. So if that doesn't tell the community how badly this is wanted and needed, I don't know what does, but I'll let it go for now. Be sure to get out and enjoy this beautiful spring weather by taking a walk on any one of our our walking trails. We have the Pack Trail, which is in very much use. We have the Nature Trail down at the campground, and then we have the Clubhouse Trail. They're all beautiful. You need to get out there and try them. Okay, I'll put on my Entertainment Committee hat. I'm having a blast with entertainment. I just want to go on record as saying our Easter buffet at the club will be April the 16th. Karaoke night continues to be very successful. We had 250 reservations for this last Friday night. 250 people who ate, drank, and thoroughly enjoyed themselves. Thanks to Keith Casterland's wonderful music skills. Aaron Reed set it up beautifully. I see some of the setups are still around for us to enjoy. Being Irish, that's okay with me. And there will be one coming up on the 22nd of April, and I make the suggestion that you get your reservations in if you want to attend, because when the reservations fill up, the doors close.
Can I interrupt again? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'm going to come back to the Wellness Center after you're done, but just a quick comment on the karaoke. I experienced some confusion when I tried to order at 9 o'clock and was told by a server that the kitchen was closed, and I don't know whether it was or not, but I eventually wound up getting served. And I also understand that we had a server leave right at the beginning of the event, so that caused some confusion. But I've heard some comments from several of the people there that had a great time and said that there was difficulty in getting served on time, and so
Well,
Hope that's resolved.
I really can't address the food side of it, the service side of it too much, but I do know that there were several servers, and they were working extremely hard to cover 250 people at the same time. And one gentleman did say, well, I wanted to order a drink, and the waitress didn't come back or whatever. It's right there, as is one down on the end of the Brazos. I'm not making excuses for anybody, but I'm saying it takes very little effort as far as beverages are concerned to make this walk or that walk. As far as the food goes, I do know that there is a time that the kitchen is cut off. Now, that would be something I'm sure F&B could probably talk to a little bit better. But from the entertainment side, it was a smash. We had 40 people sing that night. 40 people. That is a first. And I left at 10:15 and was very happy. I'm sorry. Oh, no. I want to tell you right now, and this is silly Brenda again, but I closed my eyes and would have sworn George Strait was standing right up there on that stage singing. This guy was great. I mean, really great. So, yeah, I had a good time, and all my 12 people had a good time, too. So please come and check this out. And again, Keith, thank you. Aaron, thank you. F&B service. I say thank you to the F&B service. I thought they did a spectacular job for the number of people that we had.
Can we get shout more than once during the night?
I would bring you whatever you're on.
Okay, I'm still back wondering what happened to Brick House, but that's okay. I'm going to move on now to, this leads me right up to the upcoming Pecans Got Talent. Several of those people that were at this karaoke are going to be performing at Pecans Got Talent, which is on Saturday, April the 29th. And again, this is a reservation event, so get your reservations in for that. I know you won't want to miss it. And then the last thing for entertainment that I want to bring you up to date on is the annual Unique Car Show. As I was pulling in for this meeting tonight, somebody drove up in a car that I really think needs to be in our show, Mr. Miller. So if you have any car that you think is unique, this is your opportunity to share it with the rest of Pecan. I've met 3 new members, one of which has 5 cars that qualify as unique. So I think we're going to have a spectacular show for y'all this year. Please come and enjoy. And that concludes it. Oh, yes. Don't forget to check your columns for more details.
Thank you, Brenda. Any comments, sir?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a mention of the subcommittee that worked so hard on the Activity and Wellness Center. They are anxious to not lose the momentum they have, and while they were disappointed, they are ready to go again. And I urge them to just lower the heat a little bit, the temperature, and what I would like to do is ask the board at our Monday meeting if they have a recommendation. I know long-range planning considered what happened, said, well, that's kind of an end to this process, and so if there's any interest in continuing to move forward, we'll have to start again. But we do need to respond to the energy and enthusiasm of that committee, and also respond to the results of the vote. The community didn't have enough interest to provide that supermajority. So we need to be responsive to both of those groups, and I'm going to ask the board on Monday's meeting what they recommend in terms of whether we move forward or not.
I had a quick question for the Sports and Rec. During the campaign season, got lots of feedback, heat to still the word of the day, on the condition of the parks. And I live close to Sandy, and there's at least 2 pieces of equipment down there in various states of disrepair and have been for some time now. What's the plan to address the, seems like, growing rumbling towards the condition of our parks, or is there one? And how often do y'all as a committee look at it?
We have addressed that in our long-range plan. It's in 0 to 5. The problem is that
the cost of replacing this equipment. This equipment was put in many, many years ago, and it is now doesn't follow the current guidelines. So in order to do it, we are having a discussion as to whether or not it's new or it's replacement because of the cost affected by it. So we are studying it. We are talking about it. We've also got a new subcommittee, like we need one more, but we have a new subcommittee of Sports and Rec that is going to be mainly addressing that issue.
Yeah, I would recommend just some simple maintenance might fix some of the issues. The tether ball's been flat for 6 months. There's the nets out front. There's one net on the go, one doesn't have a net, and so I don't know if that's a major deal or just we don't look at those things as often as we possibly
They look
should.
at them weekly, pretty much, and we go through an unnamed number of tether balls. I mean, occasionally we put a brand new one out there and then somebody sticks a switchblade in it and you might lose it the next day. Right, Daniel? And or they'll cut the nets. Or we have an instance where that tether ball's been great for 6 months. But grounds typically goes through that place every single week. And then, we order and try to replace what we can. The question about equipment is a much bigger question. The current, I'm not going to say laws, I mean, most parks and playgrounds try to follow the guidelines of the, the CPHS or something like that, it's Child Protective Services, national guidelines. It's a book like this. And I contracted a guy that's in that business to come out and give me a safety audit report. It wasn't an official all the way, but he provided it complimentary. I told him to bill us, and because he took so long getting it back to me, he didn't charge me anything. What I've been holding on to that is till we get an ad hoc committee together to go over the results of it. But the results were, from this guy's expertise in the business, is we are out of compliance on so many things. It's just very expensive to fix, and do we want to spend that money to tackle? I mean, I've been bringing up that issue for at least 12 years, and it just doesn't make the cut, because if I was to tell you that, okay, to make Sandy Beach compliant, just that, $65,000, okay? And then it's also in a floodplain.
So what was the date of that?
I got that, I think I got it in May. So I have that, and I sent it off to Michael too, and he advised that we work and try to get a committee together to look at this, because in some of the parks we don't really have a good answer, because the biggest problem is, well, not only is some of the equipment, like I had the guy go, that's illegal, that needs to go, that's got to go, that might be okay, but we're missing safety surfacing. So back in the day, like when we all were kids, you could play on concrete on monkey bars. Now the biggest concern is head injury and safety surfacing that they do. Now the guy went back to all his suppliers, because what I asked is, okay, our parks are located where they are. They're in a floodplain. Is there a safety surfacing that would be approved in a floodplain that we could just simply clean on off, or whatever, and then just go on with our business? And he came back and he says none of their manufacturers would recommend installing in a floodplain. It would probably void any warranty at all. So now you're into relocating some of the equipment that's not illegal. The basic cost of a relocation of an existing piece of equipment is 1/3 to 1/2 the cost of a brand new piece. To get lost in the process, and it's not something that is management's fault, let's put it that way, because we look at it every single year. Addressing the problems that you hear with stickers, the biggest thing we face is you're in a floodplain, it's not irrigated, seeds and pre-emergent, all that stuff are water dependent, watering them in, and then the grass to maintain healthy. So do you want to spend $25,000 to irrigate the park down there in the floodplain? I don't know. I know Daniel had put, weed killer. We spent untold amounts of money and labor pulling weeds, trying to get the stickers out and all that stuff. And then you have a flood come by and it wipes you out and sets you back 2 years of work of what you're doing. So, we're open to suggestion. and we'd
But
love
we
to have
did
some help.
burn the parks off this year,
We
Keith.
did burn all the parks off, which will get rid of the stickers on the surface, because you got to reach a certain temperature to rupture rupture the seeds. And, unfortunately, we probably can't get enough of a temperature in an existing spot on a ground fire to destroy the seeds that are in the ground, because it has to hit a certain temperature. It was almost this. So our only hope is some kind of, pre-emergent on that stuff, and that needs to be watered in. Well, we don't have that capability at the moment.
So let me be real specific, just since you went to that detail. So the basketball court's out front, the fence that's in disrepair, that's been that way. I mean, this is a first impression kind of thing.
Yes.
The goals are from 1998.
Yeah, we want to
They've never
remove
been
those.
painted, they've got missing nets. I mean, it just looks bad, and you guys drive by it every day, and that's not a $50,000 fix.
No, it's not.
But that fence has been that way since I've lived here. Down at the park right now, the merry-go-round, it either needs to be removed or repaired because it's not safe, because it's at a cattywampus and the bearings are shot.
Yes.
And that's been that way for 6 months. So if you see it every week and we just ignore it, I mean, at some point, who takes ownership of, hey, this is something we can do better at?
You want to address that?
I don't really know what to tell you about it. We're in the park areas every week on a weekly basis. We're not going out there and inspecting every single piece of equipment. That's the first I've heard about a bearing being out on a merry-go-round. I don't know what fence you're talking about.
You drive by it every day. It's the black fence behind on the basketball court.
I did not know that the fence was broken.
But we can repair it, certainly.
It most certainly can be repaired. For us to fix any of these issues, they've got to be reported as well. Basketball nets and tether balls are one thing. Like Keith explained earlier, we go through tether balls on a weekly basis. It's ridiculous. You put them out there, I don't know if it's dogs getting them sometimes, but typically they're being cut with something. And basketball nets are the same way. They disappear. Volleyball nets. We go through untold amount of volleyball nets. People go out there for thrills and they'll cut right down the middle of the net. I've actually considered just removing the tether ball poles, removing the volleyball nets. Their use is very minimal, and all we end up doing is replacing them for someone to come in and vandalize them again. Very rarely do you see anybody playing with the tether balls, or I don't anyway, and or the volleyball nets in any of the parks. And on rare occasion, you do see them out there with the basketball, playing basketball. So I think we need to go back to the drawing board and evaluate what parts of the park do we actually need. Maybe we need to downsize them, just like Keith said, and start removing some of this stuff.
Brenda, a thought would be to put a survey out to members on the parks and get some input on, do we need all the parks? Are we better off doing the super park? Do we need all the volleyball nets? I think this would be a good place to poll the members.
Because that's what's come up in committee. What's come up in committee is that because of the cost, we needed to concentrate on one area and make it compliant. And in our opinion, that one area is the PAC. So I'd be more than happy with our new ability to do these email blasts out, to do an email blast asking for input. We've asked for volunteers to come on board for this committee, and hopefully at this next meeting, because I was not at the last one, at this next meeting we might have some names and we can get going on it. But yes, we do understand the complaints. I too hear on Next Door Pecan about the complaints, and it is something that we are investigating. And just like everything else in Pecan, it costs money to fix it. It's not a simple fix because these are aging infrastructure issues.
Mr. President, I got a question here on that, and specifically on the financing of this stuff. And Tom and Dave here may add to my comment here, but I heard Brenda say that she, in the committees, they're not sure if this is replacement or new or something like that. I would venture to say that this would be replacement capital. Do you agree with that, Tom? I mean, if we're going to replace stuff down there, it's not new, it's replacement of old.
Well, it really depends on the scope of what you're talking about. If you're simply replacing what's already there, yes, obviously that's true. But basically what I hear is, and this is a general problem, I talked about the aging infrastructure before, but on top of the aging infrastructure, and this is for Doug's benefit, when we renovate, we frequently find that we can't do what was there. For example, the railings on this building. When we replaced the rotting railings on this building, we had to put them closer together because the codes required us to do that. And that made the project more complicated and more expensive. Keith has just enumerated the regulations that we have to now comply with that we didn't have to comply with 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. And so this is yet another project which should be, in my opinion, submitted through the Long Range Planning Committee, through the CAMP process, which we have just designed to do this and to do it properly. And one of the things that process does is it makes the proposers, whether it's a committee or an individual, face up to the real costs of doing what needs to be done, both in terms of what the members want, but also what's required of us by regulations, rules, laws, et cetera, et cetera. I highly recommend you attend both the Finance Committee meeting and the Long Range Planning Committee meetings, because I think you'll find that we already have a whole list of projects that are in the works, for many of which the money is not even in existence at this point. Some of them are out of the replacement capital reserve fund, and that's fine, but others are going to require new capital which doesn't yet exist. And so these are the realities of having some of these things. We hear this all the time on Next Door Pecan, why don't we do this, why don't we do that? And as Brenda said, all of these things cost money.
This new process, it is an expansion of a existing process for new amenities that has existed for about 3 years. That wasn't really well publicized, I don't think, to the community, just what the steps are to initiate this kind of an effort. And I think part of the recommendation that our committee is making is to publicize that, to get this word out to the community. If there is an initiative that they want to begin, that just what are other steps to put that into motion. So.
Yeah, Bev and I are going to be educating the new committee chairpersons this year in the new committees, and one of the things we're going to do is make them completely familiar with this new process, because most of the projects we're talking about originate in the committees. A number of them originate with individuals, but that's usually done by going to the committee involved and saying, look, let's get this moving and actually get this project done.
I agree with Mr. Christ, but, we publish that DCR, and when this board approves it, it will become part of our governing documents, but I defy you to find me 100 people out here out of the 6,000 that live here that even know the DCR exists. It takes two people to communicate. One of them has to have their ears and their mind opened, and you can do all you want to and talk, but the information is available. And Mr. Christ is right. There is a process, and the members have access to it. All they got to do is use it. If you can figure that out, Mr. Kamen, give you a gold star.
Okay. We're really falling behind. We need to keep moving. I'd like to ask Mike to cut this off and move to our next committee report.
I believe Mr. Hartman's going to give a Marina Committee report.
As of the meeting on 14 March, the Marina Committee itself was not going to be doing the smoker action. The club system has picked up the food for our Marina Day. Our chief smoker is going to be unavailable and kind of left us hanging out. We're going to have boats there, we're going to have ATVs, and we're going to have hobby kayaks available for demo as well. The Marina Grill is going to be having a special that day, so come on out and enjoy the day of looking at different things. We're going to set up tables for the swap meet, so if you have stuff you want to trade among other fisher people, please bring it out, make it a fun day. Once again, that is on the April 29th, along with the talent show that evening. Our planned hours are from 10 o'clock in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. You will notice at the dock that the Sportsman's Club has now installed a fish cleaning station. That's a controversial thing and went on for a couple of years. We originally thought that the Clean Marina Act had teeth to it and that it would penalize us heavily if we violated their guidelines. Further study and recent notifications, we won't have their stamp of approval, but as far as we can tell, it will have no impact. We are going to watch it to make sure that any residue from the cleaning station does not end up in either B or C dock. That would be our concern. That's it for the...
Thank you, Mr. Harbin. Anybody have any comments for Marina? And finally, communications. Wynette Burns.
Yes, thank you. I left because our communications committee met during this meeting. I wanted to be sure that if anyone showed up for that meeting, that we went ahead and had it. It was a short meeting. We are in the process, of course, of replacing or reorganizing our committee. We have had 6 people sign up for the communications committee, so I think it will be in good shape for next year. We are working with the web designers on how the website will look and how it will function. That process is continued. We've had several video conferences with the web designer. And that's basically all I have.
Anything else for communications? Lou Turner, House and Food and Beverage.
Just quickly, we are taking as a committee a full facility assessment as part of our contributing to the long-range plan, and that will include every activity and every piece of square footage in this building, so that when we look forward in terms of trying to meet our future needs, we will have considered all aspects of this facility. And as some of you are aware, you know, this includes the downstairs area. How can we be more efficient in using that? And we have started that. I've chatted with Daniel earlier today on how we might look at that from his perspective and what we can do to make that area more supportive of the needs of probably the food and beverage department more than any other area. The other thing that we're looking at, in addition to the assessment and what we need to look at for the future, is what can we do now to generate more revenue? You know, are we doing things smartly? Can we do things better that generate revenue as opposed to contributing to our failures in other areas? But these are things that our committee is looking at and will continue to look at over the next month or two as we look at whether or not some activities need to be ceased because they are not being responsive to the membership, or can we do them better? So those are the areas that we're looking at.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Any comments or questions for food and beverage? If not, I believe, Mr. President, that concludes our committee reports for this month.
Okay, well, we thank you, everybody, especially for committee. This is sign-up time for committees. I encourage everybody to get out there and get our folks to sign up for committees that they may not know they have that opportunity. And also note that the April board meeting will be followed by town hall meeting, so it will be the quarterly evening meeting.
Bob, one question, or a comment, sorry. Roger Merrill was not here today, but the grounds committee is spearheading once again the pecan pickup this Sunday. I'm not exactly sure
From
what
2 to
time.
4 p.m.
Yeah.
2 to 4 p.m. Show up at the PAC, and we'll have vests and garbage bags for you with a little refreshment afterwards. Thank you very much, everybody.